Welcome to A Deeper Dive. This podcast is an extension of our Sunday sermons, a place where we slow down, ask better questions, and talk through God's Word together. Each episode, we'll revisit ideas from Sunday and spend time on the parts we didn't get to fully unpack. Whether you're listening on your commute, at home, or in a quiet moment, our prayer is that this conversation helps you grow in understanding and faith. Thanks for being here. Let's take a deeper dive. Well, welcome back to another episode of Deeper Dive. Jay, it's just us again.
It's good to be back.
Yeah.
Missed you guys last week.
Yes. Well, we missed you, but Jeff stood in nicely.
Yeah.
That was fun. We had a good discussion.
I listened to it. It was good.
Good.
So.
All right. Well, Genesis 23 and 24, a wedding and a funeral.
That's right.
As we look towards we're nearing the end of the story for Abraham.
Yeah.
Kind of walk us through where we've been and where we're at now.
Yeah. In fact, this next week, chapter 25, Abraham dies at the beginning of the chapter. So we're about to say goodbye. So 23 and 24, when you think about like a plot in a movie or a book, you have the climax, and then you usually kind of have what they call it, the denouement, or the kind of the resolution at the end, the falling action, whatever you want to call it. Mm-hmm. And this is kind of that. 22 was the high point of Abraham's life. I mean, that was the no pun intended, but the mountain peak of his faith. And so then 23 and 24, almost like, okay, let's wrap up all the loose ends of land and promise here.
Yep. Okay, that's good. So we immediately get into the death of Sarah.
Yep.
Right? Why is her death, but more so, why is her burial so significant for Abraham's story?
Yeah, it's the plot of land, first purchase of land for an Israelite, right? Yeah. For a Jew. Yeah. Yeah, Abraham gets to buy the cave and the field and the trees in it from the Hittites just outside of Hebron. Mm-hmm. So it's that purchase is almost like a down payment, or we might say, down payment or a signal of the future inheritance of the whole land. Yep.
Okay, so to get a little bit more into the actual purchasing of the land, I'm in verse, let's see, here we go, verse 5.
Yep.
So Abraham has approached the Hittites. Mm-hmm. I'm a sojourner and foreigner among you. Sorry, I'm in 4 right now.
Yep.
Give me property among you for a burying place, that I may bury my dead out of my sight. Mm-hmm. The Hittites answered Abraham, "Hear us, my lord, you are a prince of God among us." So that title, Prince of God, we've not seen before.
Yeah.
What does it tell us about Abraham's status, and also, the nation's looking at him?
Yeah, it shows us that Abraham, first of all, was highly regarded. Mm-hmm. The literal translation is Prince of God, but some of translations, and even the ESV footnotes it, saying you're like a mighty prince. I didn't look at all the translations, but I'm pretty sure some other translations do mighty prince there. Mm-hmm. But it literally is Prince of God. Yeah. And so it's showing that Abraham, that these Canaanites are recognizing Abraham's blessing, because it begin, chapter 24, it begins with the Lord had blessed Abraham in all things. As we've walked through the story, we've seen just Abraham is just a wealthy man because of God's blessing on him. Mm-hmm. And so they're recognizing his wealth, his power. I don't think I would make attach any theological significance to this, is to say like they're acknowledging, Yahweh as the one true God.
Right.
But I think it's just saying like you're a really important figure, and so therefore we want to work with you and give you a burial place for your dead. Yeah.
Was it? So there's a lot of details around the actual purchase, and he's at the gate. It's his public purchase, and we talked about it yesterday in the sermon. But was it them offering him the land to begin with, or is that just kind of the beginning of that bargaining of like, oh, we don't want to do it, but expecting the next party, like as far as like the ancient Near Eastern customs, like, is that how it would have gone?
So as Americans, when we read this passage, right, it reads as if they're trying to give him the land. Right. And he keeps saying, no, I want to pay for it. And they keep saying, no, we're going to give it. And then, especially when he gets into the bargaining with, Ephron. Mm-hmm. But reading it through our lens might cloud it. So Gordon Wenham he warns us about being careful that we don't read our culture in here, because we live in a culture where we really don't barter. I was just heard somebody the other day telling a story about going in to an antique store And their wife dared them to try to barter somebody down on their antique, and the guy was like, "What?" Well, I mean, it just didn't work because we just don't barter here. But if you go to the even today in the East, it's most people who've traveled internationally have bartered before, and so Wenham says that this is probably actually just a ancient bartering going on here. He actually quotes. He says basically today in Damascus. So he says even today in Damascus, when a purchaser makes a lower offer than he can accept, he'll get answered. It'll be like, "What is a matter of money between us? Take it for nothing, friend, as a present for me. Don't feel under any kind of constraint." And his point is they're not actually giving it away from free. That's just a bartering technique to say you're basically offering me too low. Give me more. So
that's it. I think if you come at it from the position, if you read it as a bartering, it's almost humorous of just that phrase specific, like, what is money between us? Like, and it is funny. It's good tactic.
So I would just say be cautious. That's why I chose not to make a big deal of it, especially thinking through that. But what is clear by the end of the story is that he did pay, and it was an official purchase in the city gate.
So there's no way they can pull back on him.
Correct.
For anything else. It's good. Okay. So Abraham's description of himself before he actually says, "I want to buy this," he calls himself a sojourner and a foreigner. What stands out about that?
Well, with Abraham, it's quite true. I mean,
as far as Abraham, yes. Sorry,
right.
I phrased that better.
No.
Abraham, it makes sense.
Yeah.
What can we take from that?
That's right. Yeah, no. Where I went, that's where I kind of drew the line of application for us not because I just want to nilly-willy pick out a phrase. That's where the book of Hebrews goes with it. So when you read in Hebrews 11, it even says Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob all were passing through the land, in their tents, which we think of tents as camping, but that's just normal living back then. And so the significance is, and this is what's crazy about the book of Hebrews in chapter 11 in the Hall of Faith, is that if we would have, it seems like all through this story, the bullseye, the target, the goal is the promised land.
Right.
But the author of Hebrews is like, no, he's looking past the promised land to a heavenly country. So the author of Hebrews even says it's not just about the promised land, it's about earth, period. Abraham is just a foreigner and a sojourner, and he's looking towards his heavenly city, whose foundation and builder is God. And so then that is where I connected to the New Testament theme, which Hebrews 11 is a key text on that. But it also comes up in 1 Peter and Philippians of God's people, the church, being sojourners, foreigners, some translations say pilgrims, and then Peter uses the phrase exiles, which denotes that we're actually scattered outside our land. So it's pretty significant there. So that was the connection with that. That's what's significant.
Yeah, that's good. So yesterday you posed the diagnostic question, right? And I want to ask that again, just for we can get into it. We got the time for it.
Yeah.
How do we love our earthly country without confusing it with God's kingdom?
Yeah, it's a great way to phrase that question. Man, there's so many ways I can go, so just keep probing on me. One is this. I would think it's important to know that somebody actually came up at the end of the service and asked a good question. They were asking, if it's good to love our country, how do we distinguish that from loving the world? So that's a good place to start. When we talk about loving our country, we're just talking about loving our homeland.
Yes.
And I think that's natural to love the place where we call home. Or even, I think it's important that even if this isn't, like, we don't currently live in our hometown, I think it's really important from a Christian standpoint to love the place and the people in it. So I think love of country, loving your homeland, is a natural thing. And in fact, I would argue there might be something wrong if you don't love your country, right? As a homeland. That's a little different than what 1 John says when he says don't love the world.
Right.
That would be more of don't love the evil systems that govern. So all the countries of the world, of the earth, so whatever it is, would be considered part of the world in the sense of like Satan's system opposed to God.
Mm-hmm.
So you can love your home, your country, without loving the world. I think it's important.
Yep.
So your question was, how do we love it? Say that again. How do we love our country without
confusing it with God's kingdom.
Yeah, and that's the temptation.
Mm-hmm.
The temptation is that we try to make our country Christian.
Yes.
And this gets into a lot of debate.
Mm-hmm.
And so I always like to approach this question. So if you debate this, like, is America a Christian nation or something like that? Because a lot of people, so I asked a couple diagnostic questions yesterday, but a lot of people try to justify an idolatry of country by trying to attach their faith so closely to it that you can't distinguish their faith from their patriotism.
Right. This is God's country.
This is God's country.
Yeah.
And I think that's a country song, by the way.
It is.
Okay, yeah.
Yep.
So I think what is important to see first is that whatever your view is, if we look at it biblically, I don't see anywhere in Scripture. Now, there are some theologians who would argue this, and we can talk about that later. But I don't see anywhere in Scripture where God's plan includes converting a geopolitical nation between the Christ's first and second coming.
Right.
So Christ's great commission was for us as the church, which First Peter calls us a holy nation. So if there's any Christian nation, it's the church.
Right.
So to try to, by whatever means we can, force Christianity over a whole country, I would argue is missing the mission of God.
Yeah.
So the mission of God for us as Christians is we are God's representatives on the earth, and we go out to all nations, proclaiming Jesus and making disciples. That's Matthew 28:18-20.
Right.
So the way that we love our country, I would argue, is I argue the primacy should always be people. And so the best way that we can love our country is actually to love the people God's put around us. So to me, patriotism is about loving Americans more than I love just this ideal.
Right.
Because for some people, they only love their country if their country is like what they want it.
Yep.
And I think it's important that we just love people for who they are and because of who God's made them, and therefore seek them kind of as a mission field.
Right.
So is that kind of...
No, that's good. I think just clarifying between that, like, I mean, even when you say when the Great Commission of going forth and make disciples of all nations, that clarifying point of not subjugate all nations underneath just, we're not replicating the Crusades.
That's right. That's exactly right, yeah.
It's just, it is that people.
That's right.
Versus don't get hooked on the word nation of that entire group, but
that's right.
Those who are within that group.
Yeah.
That's good.
So by nations, so I'll actually hit something close to this Sunday, not the same. But this is where I think First Peter comes in, because Peter's writing to Christians in Asia Minor, and he refers to them as elect exiles. That's how the ESV translates it in chapter 1, verse 1. And so the point is that Christians, wherever we are, whatever country in, we are still foreigners.
Yep.
We're still strangers, and our citizenship is in heaven, which is interesting because Paul mentions that in Philippians 3:20. And the church at Philippi was a colony of the Roman Empire, so they took their Roman citizenship very seriously.
Yep.
And so Paul is writing to remind them that Rome is not your ultimate citizenship. Your ultimate citizenship is in heaven, from which you wait a Savior.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, especially, I think and maybe it's just very prevalent in our area, but there is and I'm not complaining against, like, I am very grateful to live in America, like, to be in America.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I think we're not trying to put anything down on that, or
it's not anti-American anyway.
But that exact premise of not forgetting, like, yes, this is a Christian nation, but we're not Christian and we're not part of the church because we live in America and because we get to, like, that's like we're looking forward to a home that's not here.
That's right.
That's right. I think having that mindset fresh of we are exiles.
Yeah.
And I think it's getting highlighted now with just how the church is being treated to, even within America. Historically, it's been better, but it continues to change.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and the answer isn't keep trying to grasp for more political power.
Right.
The answer is keep Jesus at the center of the proclamation. Because the only solution for our culture is Jesus and Jesus crucified. And so this is why I think I said it yesterday, I can't remember, that what's interesting is that Christians, I believe that Christians who prioritize their heavenly citizenship actually are the best citizens on the earthly side. And here's why: because people, what I've seen in with Christians in America, is that people who really, I would say, we might say, how to put this?
It's
love their country
right.
significantly and put a lot of importance on it, and try to really work deep in the political process. They're oftentimes come across as angry, vengeful at times, and oftentimes unloving. Whereas the people who realize that this world's not my home, and I want to do everything I can to faithfully represent Christ, what that channels itself into is that I'm going to be a better neighbor. I'm going to be another better citizen of my city, of my state, and my country. Why? Because I want to love the people around me and do what's best for them. So it's other-centered, not me-centered.
Yes. Yeah.
On that sense.
That's good. I think, again, just to clarify, it's not at all a condemning of America or like what we have at all, but it is where is your identity?
Yeah.
And that's good.
Yeah, it's not about, I would say this to a Chinese Christian, to any other Christian. It's about Jesus' call in our life is total and complete allegiance to him, and then every other allegiance that he has flows out of that.
Yep.
Jesus doesn't put up with rivals. Never has, never will. And so therefore, yesterday, just because of this passage, it happened to be talking about, love of country, but that can apply to love of family, love of spouse, love of sports, love of what's some other money. I mean, there's just, Jesus should be clearly above everything in our lives, so that there's no rival to him.
It's good.
And when we get any rival to Jesus, that's when it becomes very problematic to us in multiple ways.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's good. Yesterday when we were talking, this kind of comes back into the looking forward to our true home, right? The city whose builder and maker is God. When you were talking about how did you put it, of when you're sitting and meditating on like that nostalgia for heaven, basically, and for the new earth. Yeah. And I think it's 100% within God's design, but there's times in our lives where we do get that little glimpse of, and outside of just meditating on the Word, which is again the best thing to do is get in the Word and be in His presence. But I think He's also given us times where you have that just fleeting moment and it's gone. And I think C.S. Lewis talks about it too, of just that yearning. And it's because we know what we were made for, and we just get a tiny, tiny image and it's gone. Yep. And it's just when you have those moments, and like a lot of it's in nature, like you see just something it's absolutely beautiful. Yep. Like sunsets as often for me of just, like you see the beauty of His creation, just think, and this is broken.
Yeah, I think C.S. Lewis, I don't remember how he said it, but basically he said he says our desires are too weak. I think that's what he said, in the sense of we settle for earthly pleasures, not recognizing that they're pointing us to the ultimate pleasure.
Yes.
So every time we enjoy something, whether it be a beautiful sunset or any kind of thing we enjoy in God's creation, multiply that to infinity, and that's what you're looking at, the new creation. Yep. And even, I don't know if this is where you're going, but even in our walks, in our walk with Christ, we all talk about a mountaintop experience. Right. So again, when you reflect back on mountaintop experiences that you've had with God, just imagine that all the time to an infinite degree, and then you're getting into what you're looking forward to in the new earth. That's what's cool about it.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah. I was just thinking about it yesterday. I was like, it's worth heading on again, because we do get those small windows, and just relish it while you have it, but then let it point you towards what we get.
That's right. Yeah.
So
cool. That's how it oftentimes works. Even when we think about like Kenny Chesney's "I Go Back,"
Exactly.
I mean, it's just small glimpses.
Yeah, I had that song playing in my head. With, not an exact. It's not a bad song, but
it's not. Yeah, there's a couple lines. There was a couple lines in there I intentionally didn't read in the sermon. So.
Oh, good.
But I couldn't resist I go back.
No, it's a good illustration. Yeah. It worked. Okay, so jumping into 24.
Yeah. Long chapter.
Yes. So like I said, longest chapter of Genesis. I didn't realize that. But yeah. Abraham brings his servant in, the oldest of his household, who had charge of all that he had. So a lot of responsibility on this guy.
Yep.
And now gets a very, very big task of find a wife for Isaac. Why, in all of these qualifications kind of that Abraham goes through, why is he so concerned about where Isaac's wife is from?
Yeah. We're going to see this really with, we'll see this again with Jacob a little later in Genesis, which we're coming up on it pretty quickly, actually. Yeah. But yeah, there's a clear line, and I hinted at this yesterday. This prefigures what would happen with Israel later when they were in the land, of the sense of that do not marry Canaanites.
Yep.
And yesterday I mentioned a few things. One of them was the wickedness of the Canaanites. In Genesis 15, God had told Abraham, he gave him a prophecy that his people would go into a foreign land, be oppressed, and come back. And then the iniquity of the Amorites was not yet complete. So we see that they're wicked. We're actually told that right when Abraham gets in the land, right? That the Canaanites were in the land, and then we find out a little later the Canaanites were not the best people. So, and they come from the land of Ham, the line of Ham, which we saw in Genesis 9. Is kind of the curse line in Genesis. So that's kind of all pointing it to the why he wouldn't. So he wanted, both with Isaac and then later with Jacob, they're sent back to Haran to find a wife. Now, curiously, what we'll see with Jacob, he actually goes to find a wife, and he actually comes back with two, Rachel. Yeah. But Isaac doesn't leave the land. So Isaac is the only patriarch who doesn't leave the land of promise. So he never leaves it.
Yeah.
Because the servant goes and fetches Rebekah and brings her back to him.
Do you think there'd be any tie of Abraham also maybe thinking Isaac stays if he goes back?
Yeah, I think that could be it. Yeah. I forget who it was. I read one commentator who talked about the importance of Isaac staying in the land. It would almost signal like a forfeiting of the land if he went back.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah. That's good. Okay, so verse 2, the end of it. Abraham calls the servant, right?
Yep.
And he says, "Put your hand under my thigh, that I may make you swear by the Lord, the God of heaven and God of the earth, that you will not take a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites." Okay, so how do we take, and we're going to get into it because it'll just be we see it.
Yeah.
What is the significance of how the servant makes the oath? Okay,
good. It's also in verse 9.
Yeah.
So the whole account wraps up by saying the servant put his hand under Abraham's thigh.
Yeah.
And made it. So first of all, from our culture perspective, that's just weird.
Yes.
But not in their culture. So however we interpret it, it's clear that it is a solemn oath. Like it is, this action makes the oath even more significant.
Right.
So there's two approaches to it. One is just the simple. He put his hand under his thigh. Where does that sound? Like, so Ken Matthews, he says basically the thigh indicates the procreative power and heritage of Abraham's position as the source of the family. So just kind of this idea. Other scholars have pointed out that like under the thigh could also mean like literally under Abraham's privates.
Yeah.
And that kind of also ties into the procreative power, and some even connect it to the circumcision.
Okay.
We don't know. Wenham says that in the ancient world, oftentimes they would take oaths by putting a sacred object in their hand. So who knows, what's going on here?
Yeah.
It's different.
Is it anywhere else in Scripture?
Yes. Jacob,
I think
Jacob does it later.
Yep.
When does he do it? Yes, we'll hit it with Jacob.
I knew that it was
with his
in
sons.
later on.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. Both times it's in Genesis.
Yes. Yep. Is it when he's
we
blessing?
Can look at it real quick. It would be like towards the end of the story. Jacob. I'm looking at chapter 48. I don't know. We'd have to. I can find it. It is Jacob. I do know it's Jacob. I just don't know where, and I don't remember where in the Jacob story.
Okay.
We'll hit it.
we may have to bring
We'll
back
bring
to
it
that
back
one.
to yeah.
Okay, but so it is elsewhere in
Yes.
Scripture, which would seem to imply that it was another just cultural
That's
norm.
exactly. Yeah. So I imagine for the servant, this was nothing strange.
Right. Yep. Just this
For
is how
us,
we make a
it
covenant
sounds
oath.
really weird. Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
It's our handshake. Think about that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we get all this importance placed on where Isaac's wife comes from.
Mm-hmm.
Now, granted, they're looking at keeping the line of promise.
That's right.
They're like following God's command. And we're not intermarrying in the Canaanites.
Which there hasn't been an explicit command yet.
Okay.
So I think it's significant that this is Abraham initiating it, and he's acknowledging that, no, I don't want him to intermarry with the Canaanites. I want him to go back.
Okay.
And later we're told, for instance, with Isaac and Rebekah, we're told Esau took a wife from the Canaanites, and that was not a good
Didn't go
thing.
so well.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So obviously we can't say, oh, well, you should only take wives from your own nation. We're not going to say that at all.
Yeah.
How do we take, though, that idea of then, we're going to we talk about in marriage terms like equally yoked.
Yeah.
How do we take that and apply that not only to marriage, but also just, I think you can take it to who you surround yourself with.
Yeah.
How do we apply it into our lives?
Yeah, so you're quoting 2 Corinthians 6, right? Don't be unequally yoked with an unbeliever. What is light to do with darkness?
Yep.
So before we hit that, so the trajectory is you got the patriarchs, so Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob not taking wives from the land of Canaan. And then when we get into the laws, the old covenant God makes, he makes it clear, like in Deuteronomy, that the Israelites were not supposed to intermarry.
Right.
What becomes clear in those commands is that God's motive for them not marrying Canaanites is to keep them faithful to him.
Yep.
It's the fact that he's a jealous God. Because in the ancient world, every nation had their own set of gods.
Yep.
So you see this with Solomon,
I would
right?
say Solomon and all the
Samson.
Yep.
So the reason that you don't marry a foreign woman isn't because God's racist. It's because when you marry a foreign woman, you get pulled into their worship of their idols, which God hates, and because he's jealous for his glory, and so therefore he wants his people to love him and worship him supremely. So that's the backdrop. So then you ask, well, what does that look like in the New Testament? And so that if we keep that as the principle, God doesn't want his people to worship other gods.
Yep.
Then the trajectory on that is believers should be equally yoked.
Right.
Which means that believers should marry another believer, not an unbeliever, because it's interesting. It always works that way, that you always get pulled to the foreign gods.
Yeah.
And so that's important. I think that's important for our culture, especially young people in our church, to hear that the God's commandment, God's desire for marriage is that you marry another believer, and that don't think for a second that you're going to change somebody if they don't know Christ. You can't convert a person's soul.
Yep.
So make sure early on in the dating stage that you don't let your emotions get the best of you, and think biblically with your head and realize that God has commanded me not to marry. And if you're not going to marry an unbeliever, then you probably start further back and don't date an unbeliever.
Yeah.
But then, as far as other extensions, I've heard the unequally yoke apply to like business partnerships, any kind of official partnership where your values come into play in a major way. Would be a good warning there, because like Paul says in 2 Corinthians 6, what has light to do with darkness? In other words, you're going to be pulling in different directions. And then what, again, oftentimes happens, like Paul says, I believe, same passage, or somewhere anyway, in Corinthians, one of the Corinthians, he says, bad company corrupts good character.
Okay. Yep.
And so that's an associated principle there, that if I marry or enter into a really deep partnership, a covenant relationship with an unbeliever, it has the potential to corrupt good character.
Okay, that's good. Okay, so continuing on in his journey, so the servant does swear to him concerning the matter.
Yep.
And then he takes 10 of the camels, bunch of gifts, and he goes to Mesopotamia, to the city of Nahor. We're in verse 10 and getting into 11.
Yep.
What stands out about the servant's journey?
Oh, well, it was a long one.
Yeah.
And so so first of all, it's a long one. So, one, I forget. So some people estimate it have been like 550 miles, which I think the person I can't remember who said that, but they also said that would have probably been like a 3-week journey.
Yeah.
So he traveled 3 weeks to go back and try to find Abraham's kinfolk.
Mm-hmm.
And so that would have been around the area of Haran, which in
Yep.
chapter 12 is where what do you call it? Abraham moved from down to the land of promise.
Mm-hmm.
So up there in just today's Syria, the area of Syria. So that's where they would have gone to try to find a wife for Isaac. So a long journey.
Yeah.
And the servant was all worried about, wonder if he won't come back. And Abraham says, if he doesn't come back, you're released from your vow. You know, your hand under my thigh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So when he enters, and we get into this narrative just over his time there in the city of Nahor, there's a lot of reading the same thing again, and a lot of repetition. Mm-hmm. What does this mean? What should we be pointed towards?
Yeah. So when we read it, so it was funny yesterday. I just read the first 9 verses because there were 67 verses in the verse.
Yeah.
I could have. There's several places I could have dropped down in, but when I'm dealing with big chunks like this, when I'm preaching, I'm just trying to drill in on what's kind of the main idea. Mm-hmm. And so that was God went before this servant.
Yep.
But when you're reading the chapter, again, as Americans, when we're reading it, we're like, man, this is so repetitive, because what happens is the story is told of the servant at the well.
Yep.
Well, then once he finds Rebecca and she takes the servant back to her house to meet her family, the servant retells the whole story again. So you get the story twice, the same story, a retelling. So first of all, when something's repeated like that's saying it's important.
Yep.
And I think why it's repeated twice in this is to really underscore God's loving kindness and providing Rebecca.
Yeah.
Because after he repeats it the second time to her family, in verse 50, Laban and Bethuel, who's Rebecca's dad, answered and said, the thing has come from the Lord. We cannot speak to you bad or good. In other words, like, wow, this is from the Lord. The Lord's hand is in this.
Yeah.
And so that's where I would say the repetition's important. The other thing about repetition in the biblical story is because the same story is told twice, it actually provides us an opportunity to kind of compare stories and see details that the servant might add that aren't in the first one. So,
okay.
Yeah. So there's a few of those like that. But
so we're introduced to some characters now.
Yeah, we
which
are.
are going to have very important roles from here on out.
Yep.
Who do we see?
Well, so 3 characters in this story that we haven't met. One is Abraham's servant.
Right.
And as we read this chapter, what we really discover is this servant, in some respects, is a model of faith. I mean, because he, just like Abraham, he goes, prays, he goes, he prays, he sees God work, he recognizes God work, and he obeys. And so, I mean, the servant's just prayer life is a great model. The second person we meet is Rebecca. And it's pretty important because Rebecca was actually introduced at the end of chapter 22.
Right.
We just get this random paragraph where Abraham was told about basically his family, and Rebecca is mentioned. It basically says in verse 23, Bethuel fathered Rebecca.
Yeah.
So before we even meet her, we've already been told in chapter 22 that she's related to Abraham.
Yep.
But what the other big thing about Rebecca is so this is called a type scene.
Okay.
So what we'll notice is in Genesis and Exodus we'll notice this again with Jacob and Moses, is that oftentimes these important men meet their wife at a well.
Yeah.
So it's called a well type scene. So it's this pattern of a scene. There's a guy named Robert Alter who's pointed this out. Like also we'll see in Genesis what's called the deathbed blessing scene.
Yep.
So where the patriarch, the father,
Yeah.
is on his deathbed and he blesses his sons.
Yep.
So what you do is you can look at these stories and see how each one is unique. Mm-hmm. And what Robert Alter points out about this scene is how Rebecca dominates it. Mm-hmm. So Isaac didn't even go.
Right.
Rebecca is the leading figure in the story. She's the one, she waters the camel. She's the one. She's the main actor. Yeah. Which is significant because as we keep reading for the next few chapters, we're going to see basically that Rebecca kind of dominates the story of Isaac. She's a very strong figure in the story of Isaac. So we get that preview of Rebecca. So we meet this woman who's, we might say, larger than life. Mm-hmm. And then the other person we meet in the story is old Laban. Mm-hmm. And what is really significant is at the end of this story, Laban and his mom try to delay Rebecca leading. So if you look at verse 55, when the servant said, in verse 54, the servant said, send me away to my master, but he said this in the morning. In verse 55, her brother, Laban, and her mother said, let the young woman remain with us a while, at least 10 days. Yep. And after that, she may go. But then the servant said this, and they let Rebecca make the call. And she said, I will go, at the end of verse 58. Yep. So here's what's funny about that. In just, chapter 29 is when Jacob is going to go to Uncle Laban's house. Yeah. And if you remember that story, like Jacob had to run away in the middle of the night because Laban would not let him go.
Yep. Uncle Laban does not let.
So Uncle Laban does not let people go. Yeah. So we meet him here doing that same thing. So that's pretty cool. Yeah.
Okay. So where do we see? I mean, it's everywhere, but I guess the key points of where we see God's providence play.
Oh yeah. No, I kind of tried to walk through this a little bit in the sermon yesterday. Mm-hmm. I just love verse 15. I mean, I love answered prayer, but I don't know if I've ever had a prayer answered before I quit praying.
Before you even stopped praying.
So verse 15, before he had finished speaking, behold Rebecca, and then we're introduced to her. Like, she's the one, because we already know that Nahor was Abraham's brother, and we're told that again in verse 15. Yeah. So we're like, oh, there she is. Yeah. And he's still praying. And then she does exactly what he said was the sign. Yeah. Offer to water my camels. One commentator I read said that's a pretty big chore because camels can put down some water.
Yeah. And 10 of them.
Yeah. So again, she goes over and above and beyond.
Yeah. And runs to do the thing. That's right. That stood out to me yesterday of the reading. It wasn't just a begrudging go and do it. It's like she ran to do the task. It's just cool. I mean, there was no doubt that there's his answer. Yeah, and so there's and then we kind of already know this, but then the servant, when he asks, who she is, she basically tells her, she gives the servant her genealogy, and he's like, oh yeah, that's it, you're my, and he knew. Yeah. So then he worshiped God and gave thanks to God. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, so he sees, obviously, God just clearly answered the prayer right then and there. Like you said, I don't know, I can never think of one that right there in that moment, there we go. Yeah. But oftentimes, God is working in that moment. But why do we so often see God's providence more clearly, like in hindsight, than in the moment? And why? Like, how do we tune ourselves to look back and see God's providence?
Yeah, I always use the illustration of like a connect the dots. When you're doing connect the dots as a kid, depending on how many dots there are, there's like 10. It's usually pretty easy. Yeah. But if you get a little more complicated on the connect the dots, what you notice is the more dots that you connect, then you begin to be able to make out the image. Yep. And so that's why I think it takes a little time for us to get perspective, is because there's so many events that happen in our life. But as time passes, we're actually able to reflect back and look at all those different events and see how they all connected together to make a beautiful picture of what God was doing in our lives. So time does help us better see what God is doing. Yeah. So I think that's where the perspective comes in, because we have such a limited vision. Yep. God sees all things, knows all things, and is working in all things. So he knows exactly what he's doing. But unfortunately for us, we have to just trust him. We don't get that vantage point. Yeah. So we see everything kind of as it comes at us. And oftentimes we don't understand why something came at us until sometimes many years down the road.
Yeah. How do we take that time to look back and see those things.
Yeah. That's where times of reflection are huge.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes it's so obvious. You're like,
Yeah.
oh man, this big thing just happened, and I see how all that stuff fell in. But sometimes we just have to kind of take some time and reflect. And that's why I think it's so important. It's funny, there's a kind of with technology and us being constantly entertained, there's like a resurgence of people arguing that we should find times to be bored. Because when we're bored, we think.
Yeah.
And so that's where I think just times just to sit and think are so important, because we're able to process what God's been doing in our life.
Yeah.
Yesterday I talked about journaling, and I think that's where journaling comes in too, because because when we journal, oftentimes we forget even what we write. Like most people can't, you forget details of your life a year ago, but if you journal, you can go back and kind of access what was going on in your life, and then really see, oh man, this is how it all connected together.
Yeah.
When you read it on those things.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
So should we expect God to guide us in the same way that he guides Abraham's servant?
Oh, that's great. Yes and no. So it depends on what you...
Great answer.
Yes. So what I tried to emphasize yesterday was God going before us. And I do think, if we think about Abraham's servant, this idea, and I would argue this, he's getting this from Abraham, this idea that, God, here I am. I need you to provide a wife for Isaac, right? So I do think the model of prayer is huge.
Yep.
I don't know if, some people might ask for a sign, but I don't think God owes us a sign. Like,
how do we, like that, very, very specific.
Yeah.
She comes, but it makes me think then of Gideon.
Yeah.
Of that. Maybe this is when Gideon, he was actually spoken to. It wasn't he? He had even more motivation not to. But how do we seek then like guidance without also demanding this miraculous sign?
I think that's the key. I think it's the heart posture. So instead of maybe saying sign, maybe we can use the phrase open and close doors.
Yeah.
So we say there's something we want, and we just ask God, open, close doors, so to speak. Maybe want's the wrong word. Maybe if we feel like it's something God's leading us towards.
Right.
Our prayer should be, God, just, make this clear through shutting and closing and opening doors.
Yeah.
And I found that's a pretty good way to pray in that regard, as far as seeking God's will and
that's good
in that regard.
So let me get practical and
absolutely
to it. What responsibility, though, do you still have? Because, yes, there is the pray. How do you find out if that door has been opened? Because I think there's it can almost just be that fallback, or if someone gives you advice, we'll just pray for God to open or close the door.
Yep.
What responsibility do you still have in that? I mean, because it can't just be, I'm going to pray about it, but if you feel like you are being led, what do you do next?
Yeah, I would say you walk towards it until the door shuts in your face.
Okay. Yeah. That's good.
Because you have to take steps towards it.
Yeah. We still have responsibility. It's not just on God of like, I'm going to, push me towards this.
Yeah, I got what you're saying.
Yeah.
No, that's good. No, I can think of situations in my life where that was the struggle, where I was really trying to discern kind of a why in the road. And I was waiting on God to make it clear, and through a certain thing, like I had a certain thing in mind, this needs to happen in order for this to happen.
Yeah.
And then at one point it became, no, you've got to take another step forward before you can see it happen. And sure enough, when I took that another step forward, then God worked and had that kind of pass.
Yep.
I also think it's important. God gives us freedom, a good deal of freedom in our in life, and that He's really good at shaping shaping us and moving us towards changing the desires of our heart.
Yep.
And moving us into His direction. So in that sense, I always say we want to always make sure that what God has made clear in Scripture, that's what we're like, I'm trying to, like, I have to obey this, I want to obey this. When it comes to like decision-making, other decisions and stuff, like kind of trying to find God's will, I think we sometimes put more pressure on ourselves in that regard than we do on just doing what God's already told us.
Yeah.
And so I would say just make sure we balance it correctly and recognize that God's going to guide your steps. Proverbs, 3, trust in the Lord with all your heart.
Yep.
Lean not on understanding, and all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will direct your steps, right? Your path.
Yep.
So there's that sense in which if my goal is to obey Christ, to delight in Christ, and to love Him with all my heart, it's just amazing how God just truly directs our steps without us having always be fretting over, is this the right step?
Yeah. No, I think that's especially important for like college and coming out of college, where you're faced with a lot of those decisions of, do I move away? Do I do this? I think what you said is how you answer that of, if your number one priority is still you're following what's in His Word.
Yep.
Like, you can honor God at home in your hometown or wherever you're transplanted. Like, it's not, you won't always get that super clear answer.
Correct.
But if you are seeking after Him, and I mean, you've got your basics going, it does, you can look back over time and see, that was what I was supposed to do.
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I found, I don't know, it's interesting as far as personal like experience going. Like, we got really involved in like doing like the Sing conference and seeing like, the modern hymns, like seeing the little things that you just enjoy, that He then brings to work later on in ways you wouldn't have thought about. It's cool. I think that is just, it goes back to the importance of reflecting on what steps have led you already to the point where you're at.
That's right.
And then it's like, oh, okay, this makes sense. Yeah, it's a good answer.
Yeah, and you made a good point there. Like, you're talking about, you're kind of getting into the modern hymns, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, you're a worship pastor leader.
Right.
So when you think about that, like, God had been preparing you for years,
right?
And that's the other thing. Like, when you're looking back and reflecting on what's happening in your past, sometimes it helps you even make a decision in the present just by thinking about that.
Exactly, and that was a situation where I didn't have a very like. I did have something that I would said it had this, like, this has to go, and it did. But it was also then looking back and like, we when you're put in a position that, oh, all these years have truly led up to this moment, and I think, and that's not always the case, but I'm super grateful it was, because it really helped all of us go into it with just peace of, all right, cool, like this is the next thing.
Yep.
But again, in the moment, I would have never said, oh, I really enjoy this, and I want to become a worship pastor and do this.
Right. That's right.
It's just, I love this.
Yep.
And He can use those passions to then shape and then, develop you for the future.
That's good. It's good. That's good stuff.
Yeah, He's good.
Yep.
Okay. Well, finishing it out, Rebecca leaves, and by all appearances, she does not put up any fight to go. So why is her willingness important? Because I feel like it is noted that it was.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a really good point. Yeah,
she said, I will go.
She would go. I actually think it, again, testifies to Rebecca's trust. Part of this is also, could be cultural in the sense of the servant came looking for a kinfolk of Abraham and found her, and it's going back. And then even the blessing that she gets in verse 60 is loaded. When her family blesses her, when it says at the end, may your offspring possess the gate of those who hate him. Yeah, that's the exact phrase that comes out of chapter 22 when God tells Abraham, I will surely bless you and multiply your offspring, and your offspring shall possess the gate of his enemies. Yeah. So there's a lot going on here that's showing that Rebecca is the next, what are called matriarchs, so the mother of Israel. She's the next matriarch in following Sarah. Yeah. So she's truly, this chapter is saying, Sarah's dead, here's her replacement. Rebecca's the next one in the case. And so I think it shows her faith and prepares us for what we're going to see in the next chapter, in chapter 25.
Okay. Well, let's look at a little preview of what we get for next week.
Yeah, so next week we're actually only going to do one chapter. It's not intentional. I would love to do more than one chapter, but it's just the way these chapters fall. Yeah. So we're looking at, basically, Abraham's going to die. Yep. And then we're going to see the birth of Esau and Jacob. So I've entitled my sermon, Sibling Rivalry. And we're going to see the prophecy of them as they're fighting in the womb. Yeah. And then kind of chase that through the biblical story.
That's cool. Yeah. That'll be fun.
Yeah. Yep.
Looking forward to it.
Too. All right. Thanks for a good conversation.
No, thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for listening to A Deeper Dive. We hope that our conversations have been edifying as you continue to think about the passage that we looked at this past Sunday. Our prayer is that our discussions will help you not only gain a better understanding of God's Word, but that you will also fall deeper in love with Christ, and that your life will reflect Him more and more each day as we both have these conversations and look at God's Word together on Sunday morning. We hope you will join us next time as together we take a deeper dive.